If you kill someone in South Dakota, even if you didn't intend to do it, you can go to prison for life.
South Dakota is one of 3 states that allows a life sentence for first-degree manslaughter.
First-degree manslaughter is a reckless killing, and these cases are often plea bargained down from second-degree murder, which carries a life sentence. Now, only in the manslaughter cases, judges have complete discretion over what kind of sentence they hand down. And that has some people, including a retired judge turned lawmaker, calling for change to sentencing guidelines in South Dakota.
In tonight's KELOLAND News investigation, Angela Kennedy looks into some of South Dakota's high-profile manslaughter cases and the wide variety of sentences perpetrators receive, revealing that it can even happen in the same case by the same judge.
He was a mama's boy. I was a single mom. He just was a mama's boy. We did everything together.
SUSIE Stonehouse's son, Riley, was killed in August of 2017.
He was hanging around a kid he shouldn't have been hanging around with. They said most likely he didn't even know Dylan Holler that shot and killed him.
While toxicology reports showed Riley wasn't using drugs, he was there when a drug deal went bad and Holler had a gun.
My son gets himself out of the car. He opens the door, getting himself out of the car. The gun goes off when he pistol whips Jaden Eastman, and it hits my son in the back left side. He gets himself out. He falls by the tree. He has 30 seconds to a minute to live.
Dylan Holler didn't intend to kill Riley.
I'm not saying that he did, but he knew someone is going to get hurt that day. It was loaded. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing.
Holler pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter in Riley's death and was sentenced to 40 years in prison.
How do you even put a number on a young life he took, and your son on top of it? And it was so senseless. It was so senseless.
Stonehouse's personal tragedy has made her much more aware of how much sentences for manslaughter can vary.
You hear of cases like Riley's. Okay, some people might have gotten 15 years, and then in other cases, some people get 100 years. They get a bigger sentence.
The difference between a manslaughter, first-degree manslaughter, and a second-degree murder in South Dakota is very narrow. And if second-degree murder is automatic life sentence, it makes sense that a manslaughter, at its worst instance, should be a life sentence. And I've had manslaughters that got less than a year in prison.
Pennington County State's Attorney Mark Vargo prosecuted many manslaughter cases, both in the federal and state systems. In 1994, he offered Joaquin Ramos a plea deal in the shooting death of his pregnant girlfriend, Debbie Martinez. Ramos pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter and received a sentence of life without parole, which was later commuted to 150 years.
I'll tell you flat out, if Jack Ramos had not been subject to a potential of a life sentence, I wouldn't have made him a manslaughter offer.
Ramos's uncle, Angelo CRUZ, has been fighting for criminal justice reform in South Dakota for years.
In every case, someone has died. And to give one man 0 time and another life without parole is very extreme. And that has to be modified to the point where at least they are perhaps closer to one another, rather than one man walks away after killing someone and another man doesn't. And I believe that is what is so unfair.
South Dakota currently has 129 people in prison serving sentences for first-degree manslaughter. Nearly 30% of those are basically in for life. 21 manslaughter convicts are serving life without parole. Another 15 inmates are serving 80 years or more. The lowest sentence for someone now in for manslaughter is 11.5 years. But others guilty of first-degree manslaughter have received much less than that. Take the case of Douglas Schulten. Schulten is one of 4 young men, all under the age of 21, charged with the same crime in the shooting death of Jordan LeBeau in 2013. The men conspired to perform a rip and rob LeBeau of $100,000 in cash they believed was stashed away in shoeboxes in his closet.
They all pled down to manslaughter.
Kevin Rice's mother, Ann, will never forget the day her son and Doug Schulten came back to her home acting strangely, and the cops showed up at her door. Kevin admitted he'd been party to a crime.
And I said, what is the crime? He goes, the boy who got killed on the TV. And he goes, they used that gun. And I was beside myself. I was just like, oh my God. So I said, Kevin, you're going to have to get a lawyer. And I said, I'm done with this. What is going on here?
Judge Bradley Zell sentenced Schulten to 30 years, but suspended his time, meaning Schulten didn't have to go to prison. The other defendants in the case, Trevor Krutoff, who pulled the trigger, got 40 years. Brian Anderson got 50 years.
I never thought the situation would get out of control like it did, or I would have never partaken in any of this.
However, Rice, who prosecutors said organized the crime, got the highest sentence at 60 years.
Even though you're not the one that pulled the trigger, you are the one that placed a gun in these two young guys' hands.
Judge Zell gave him the harshest sentence. You know, he kept saying in the courtroom, you could have stopped it. Well, what four of them could have stopped it? That gun went through 5 hands before it went off. I was just shocked. I was literally shell-shocked. I was like, am I hearing what I'm hearing here?
Why do you think he got the most out of everybody?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Had we had more of a sentencing guidelines or something, these judges can't act like God one day and say, "Oh, Doug, you're okay here, but Kevin will just throw the other 3 away, for a long period of time." It illustrates that we need sentencing, criminal justice reform in this state.
Manslaughter, is negligent, reckless, doesn't require an intent to kill somebody, whereas murder requires that was an intent, and yet the punishment is potentially exactly the same.
Retired judge and current state senator Art Rush has been working to reform South Dakota's manslaughter sentences, but has only been met with resistance.
The prosecutors are opposed to it because they're opposed to anything that potentially reduces the sentence.
So a judge has very full discretion. I think as a state we have done extremely well appointing judges to the bench who try to use that discretion well. I think our judges try to follow the law and try to make sure that the punishment fits the crime.
Meanwhile, Rice has been frustrated by the lack of willingness by lawmakers to take another look at the issue.
Honestly, if it's not corns or horns, it doesn't get addressed well in Pierre.
But that doesn't mean she will give up lobbying for change.
I will be there till the day I die.
Rush says he will bring the issue back before the legislature this year. While Douglas Schulten did not receive prison time in the LeBeau case, he was ordered to perform 500 hours of community service a year for a decade, pay $70,000 in restitution, and fund a $10,000 scholarship in LeBeau's name. We checked with the South Dakota judicial system and found that Schulten is up to date